As I think many viewers probably know at this point, the New Jersey transit strike is over. It was an engineer strike that shut down the state's commuter rail system for 3 days. Senator Sweeney, what do you think the state needs to do in the future to prevent similar disasters like this from happening again?
Don't wait for 5 or 6 years to settle a contract, number one. Work with the unions. There's an expiration date on contracts for a reason. So work with the unions to get that contract done in time. I do this for a living. I negotiate for a living, so I know how it works. No one wanted to go on strike. They didn't want to go on strike. I'm glad they came together to settle this thing. But we got to respect our workers too. And to ignore what happened is a problem. The other thing is, honestly, putting the right people in place to run the place. Chris Clory is a transportation expert. We finally got somebody. Look, the person that was the CEO before this was a maritime engineer. Last time I checked, buses run on roads and trains run on tracks. You know, putting people in place that know what they're doing is extremely important. So, thrilled for the commuters. I think it's great. And we got to fund transit, though. We got to make sure we continue to fund it.
Mayor Baraka, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I think we need to make sure we have dedicated funding for transit. It's not there. The corporate millionaires tax needed to not be rated. We needed to use that to continue to fund transit as it is. Stop using our capital funding to pay operating costs if we had sufficient funding. I agree that we should have settled this contract 6 years ago, that nobody should be going without a contract for that long, and that we needed the revenue and the money to be able to do that. We cannot give billionaires tax breaks and fund our infrastructure at the same time. We have to change our tax code so we have money in our budget to deal with the things that are important to us. And we have to stay at the table, so I'm glad that the governor and Chris Clory stayed at the table. I also agree that we need new leadership there. It's important that we have the right people running the agency, and we're not putting our friends and our relatives in these spots to be able to make critical decisions about what happens here in New Jersey. I would also lean into buses. I think that we should spend a lot of time talking about buses because buses, in my mind, represent a large portion of folks in my constituency who 50% of them don't own a car. More than half make only $37,000 a year. It's important for us to invest in buses, to expand buses statewide, to make sure that we could turn this agency, not just in a train, in an agency that takes people to New York and Philadelphia, but talk about moving people around the state of New Jersey.
So, Mayor Phillip, I want to bring you into this as well with a slight update to the question. You've been endorsed by a number of transit unions in this race, although not the union that was specifically just on strike. Do you think that the state was fair in its dealings with the union during this process?
Look, being executive, I've dealt with 7 unions. I negotiate. I have some familiarity. So I don't know what's happening in the room. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, transportation in New Jersey has been neglected, and that is a failure of leadership. And there's a couple ways to fix it, and I think that the next governor has an opportunity of that. Number one is I stood alone on congestion pricing, saying that it is a healthy thing for the state of New Jersey, because if you believe in the environment, you believe in health, or you believe in mass transit from a regional standpoint, you would err on the side that working families take the buses and trains, and congestion pricing has served to benefit. Number two, the widening of the Turnpike project is a $12 million boondoggle. You need to put that directly into the system. The CBT, which we suggested originally, you need to make that perpetuity, not 5 years. I say this because we are a failure of leadership crisis moment because they haven't put money into it and thinking about a regional system. So I'm not in the rooms ultimately, and I don't think any of us are on how that looks. I'm proud to be supported by the majority of transportation unions, and I am proud to have a substantial track record around transportation.
Well, Congressman, I'm actually going to get to you on the next question, which is a continuation of this. Mayor Phillip brought up a number of different transportation-related topics, including the corporate transit fee that will fund, or that has dedicated funds for New Jersey Transit through 2028. Do you support continuing that corporate transit fee after 2028? Some of your opponents have called for that. To my knowledge, you have not specifically called for that. Do you support that policy?
I'll get that in 1 second. I do want to just say one thing. People are pissed about what happened on the transit strike because they're upset about transit overall, right? We know the summers of hell where they're stuck on the trains are delayed, buses aren't running on time because we've got old buses and old rail cars. We've got to fix both so we get the place running again. And that, I think, is critically important. And to the point of the congestion tax that Steve brought up, which I just want to address, People are hurting in our state right now. They're getting nickel and dimed. Everywhere they turn, they're feeling crushed. The idea that we would hit hardworking families like nurses and electricians and teachers with a new $9 a day tax to drive into New York is outrageous. You fight New York when they mess with Jersey families. You don't allow that to go on. And Steve should also know that actually the congestion tax would cause more pollution in northern New Jersey. There's not a lot of options, Steve, for people in a lot of places in our state for mass transit. That's why a lot of people have to drive, unfortunately. We want more mass transit, which is why we should invest in more mass transit. It's why, of course, right now you've got the corporate tax to be able to help invest more in mass transit. We got to keep investing in mass transit. It's critical for our state.
So I just want to...
Joe, he mentioned me by name. Could I respond to that, please?
Sure, but I do also want to ask him the follow-up because the ultimate question wasn't answered.
Okay. Well, everybody's going to mention me by name, so that's great.
That's good.
Okay.
But I want to follow up. But first, Congressman, do you support extending this corporate transit fee?
I think right now it's in place for 3 years. We'll see what the next budget calls for. Right. The bottom line is I want to make life more affordable for people, not increase taxes. That's the same old way in Jersey, right? And hitting people when they drive, when Jersey and New York people drive into Jersey, New York people drive into Jersey with yet another tax. I want them coming to Jersey to eat at our restaurants, to go to our stores, and hitting people with another fee to drive into Jersey is going to drive people away from Jersey.
Listen, the corporate business tax. Corporate business tax was proposed in 2018 by Senator Loretta Weinberg and me. I'm thrilled that they passed it. But what they didn't do is constitutionally dedicate it. I know how this stuff works. What's going to happen here is in 3 years, if that money isn't dedicated, it's going into a black hole called the budget. That's the thing we got to fear about. Look, they raised it last year and took the $1 billion and used it for the budget, not for transit. We have to make sure that transit funding is in place and it's used for the purpose that it's being raised. Too much of the stuff that happens in Trenton is we raise something, we're saying it's going to be for this, and it goes over there. It's not okay. We have to lock this money up to make sure that the people that are depending on transportation, and by the way, I would love to have some in southern New Jersey. We'd love to have some. I've seen buses, I've seen trains. Don't have many down by me, but would love to have some more.
Steve Phillip, you get 15 seconds. And again, just to remind everybody, just mentioning the name isn't necessarily an attack.
Did he answer the
15
corporate
seconds.
business tax question? Did he answer that?
Mayor Phillip.
Let me just say that a reasonable person could understand on congestion pricing, okay? And I get the polling says that you should be opposed to it. But every environmental group, every health group, every mass transit-oriented group says it is a good thing. Ask yourself, who drives their personal vehicle every day to Midtown Manhattan and then pays $1,500 a month to park? Is that working people? Working people take buses and trains every day.
If they don't have
and
the
we
options,
need to invest
you should
in mass
really go to
transit
other
at the
parts
end
of Jersey
the day.
besides Jersey City. Because a lot of people don't have the option, man.
Josh,
that's the problem.
Listen,
we need to invest more
we
in
have the
mass
most
transit
comprehensive
to make sure we
plan
can
around
Okay,
Can
we're
they go somewhere else and have
stopping
this
right here
argument?
because we have another
Can they go somewhere else and have this argument so we can have a debate?
Joey, you have your follow-up.
So I'll bring Congresswoman Sherrill into this really quickly. Any funding that goes towards mass transit could go towards any number of goals. It could go towards capital improvements, it could go towards line expansions, it could go towards reliability improvements, so on and so forth. Everyone on the stage is going to talk about fixing New Jersey transit. When you talk about fixing New Jersey transit, what are the specific things that you would prioritize above all else?
So specifically, I think we have to get a dedicated source of funding to rail. The corporate business tax is what we have in place right now, but I think long-term we have to look at transit-oriented development. That's exactly what I would build out as governor. I think we need to have a statewide transportation plan so that we run the systems throughout our state. Right now, the last plan was really done in the 1800s, so we have rail lines that go in and out of the cities. We need a statewide plan that includes bus lines and, yes, the southern line from the Glassboro-Camden light rail that we need to get built out as well. And then finally, I think we need to look at what the future is of our EVs on the road. So where are we going to have EV chargers as well as truck stations? All of this needs to be determined because that will help us then build out the state as far as where we're building homes and corporate offices as well.
Right, so I would like to say that, with all due respect, I agree with transit-oriented development. It should happen. We should be building housing, but that's more of an affordable housing model. It's not going to fund transit itself. We're going to get into this tax issue. People are trying to avoid this, but this is the only way we pay for services in the state. We don't sell pies out of the back of the state house or cars. Our revenue comes from ratables. It comes from taxes, people's taxes. Either the middle class are going to pay or billionaires and millionaires are going to pay. Then they say they're going to lower your taxes but raise your fee 15%, which is really a tax. So ultimately, we're going to get the money from millionaires and billionaires to invest in transit the way it should be, so it'll function for everybody.
Transit-oriented development around the world to fund transit, and I think that's
I agree
the
with that.
model that we
Steve
really
Sweeney's
have
next.
to look
Go
at.
ahead,
Just
and
not
then
gonna
Mikey
fund
Sherrill.
transit,
Steve
that's
Sweeney's
all.
next.
New Jersey was the envy of the nation in transportation in the 80s and 90s. We had the best transportation system in the country. And what's happened here is we stopped funding it. You know, my son was in Japan not too long ago and told me if they're 40 seconds late, they're apologizing. So if Japan can do it and other places can do it, and what we need to do, we got to look around the country and get the very best model of mass transportation and bring that here and adopt it.
Yeah.
We finally got the funding. We finally have the funding for it. So now let's go get the best operations, because what we're doing sure as hell doesn't work. And too many people that are missing their meetings. Hey, I love Amtrak. I love taking the Acela. I hate having to pay for a ticket to go to New York and wind up being 3 hours late for my meeting, so my meeting gets canceled, and I paid for a train ticket.
Mikey Sherrill, 15 seconds, and then we're going to move to Micah with the next question.
I just was going to address the transit-oriented development. That is one of the ways, in fact, Japan funds their transit system. So I do think we can do both, the affordable housing, which we need to build, but also have those ratables around those transit hubs feed into our transit system as a dedicated source of funding.